Hello again. Welcome back. Now, this video is purely for entertainment. And I say that sometimes, but no, this actually is. Outside of the usual frame of the fourth kind by Gurdjieff, that is, that enlightenment or truth can be found at any point along the story that we call life, then what we have here is just a tale for pure entertainment purposes. Yes, there is truth and all sorts of little gems of wisdom throughout it. But how many of those you score is not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is for enjoyment. So enjoy and learn something in a very entertaining way at the same time. I'm reading to you today from a paper called A Kind Word Turneth Away Wrath by Terry Dobson. This had me on the edge of my seat. It's very short, and I'm going to share it with you. And I'm going to animate as I story tell this, because that's what I like to do when I tell people stories. And even though you're not here, I'm going to pretend you are, just so that way I can be as animated as I possibly can to give you the best experience you possibly can. Here we go. A turning point in my life came one day on a train in the suburbs of Tokyo. It was in the middle of a languid spring afternoon, and the car was comparatively empty. A few housewives out shopping with their kids in tow, some old folks, a couple of bartenders on their day off poring over the racing form. The rickety old car clackled monotonously over the rails as I gazed absently out the drab houses and the dusty hedgerows. What a scene. At one sleepy little station, the doors opened and the drowsy afternoon was shattered by a man yelling at the top of his lungs. A string of loud, shocking, violent oaths filled the air. Just as the doors closed, the man, still yelling, stumbled into our car. He was a big man, a drunk man, an exceedingly dirty Japanese laborer. His clothes were stiff and dried with vomit, his hair matted and crusted with filth. His eyes were bloodshot neon red, and his face was apoplectic with hatred and rage, screaming unintelligibly. He swung at the first person he saw, a woman holding a baby. The blow bounced off of her shoulder, but sent her spinning across the car into the laps of an elderly couple. It was a miracle that the baby, of course, for the sake of the story, was unharmed. The couple jumped up and scampered towards the other end of the car. The laborer aimed a kick at the retreating back of the aged grandmother. "You old," with a WH, common word for women, being used as an insult, he bellowed, "I'll kick your ass." Ass as in animal ass. He missed, and the old lady scuttled safely beyond his reach. Beside himself with rage, the drunk grabbed the metal pole in the center, turn the page, of the car and tried to wrench it from its stanchion. I could see one of his hands was cut and bleeding. The train rattled on, and passengers frozen with fear everywhere. I stood up. I was still young back then, and in pretty good shape. I stood 6 feet, weighed 225, and had been putting in a solid 8 hours of aikido training every day for the past 3 years. I was totally absorbed in aikido. I couldn't practice it enough. I practically enjoyed the harder workouts. I particularly enjoyed the harder workouts, the ones with the badass college jocks where teeth patted on the floor like hailstones. I thought I was tough. Trouble was, my skill was yet untried in actual combat. We were strictly enjoined from using aikido techniques in public unless absolute necessity demanded the protection of other people. My teacher, the founder of aikido, taught us every morning that aikido was non-violent. Aikido, he would say over and over again, is the art of reconciliation, not of fighting. To use it to enhance one's ego, to dominate other people, is to betray totally the purpose for which it is practiced. Our mission is to resolve conflict, not to generate it. I listened to his words, of course, and even went so far as to cross the street a few times to avoid groups of lounging street punks who might have provided a jolly brawl in which I might test my proficiency in my daydreams. However, I longed for a legitimate situation where I could defend the innocent by wasting the guilty. Such a scene had now arisen before me. And he goes on to say, I was overjoyed. My prayers have been answered, I thought to myself as I got to my feet. This slob is drunk and mean and violent. He's a threat to the public order, and he'll hurt somebody if I don't take him out. The need is real. My ethical light is green. That's your first warning right there. Seeing me stand up, the drunk shot me a look of bleary inspection. Aha! He roared. A hairy foreign twerp needs a lesson in Japanese manners. I held onto the commuter strap. That was him saying that. I held onto the commuter strap overhead, feigning nonchalance. Seemingly off balance, I gave him a slow, insolent look of contentious dismissal. Oh. It burned into his sodden brain like an ember in wet sand. I'd take this turkey apart. He was big and mean, but he was drunk. I was big and I was well trained and cold sober. You want a lesson? Animal of an ass who has a hole, he bellowed, trying to keep the language at a curve. Saying nothing, I looked coolly back at him and slowly pursed my lips, blew him a faggoty little kiss across the car. Probably not with the hand gesture. He gathered himself for his big rush at me. He'd never know what hit him. A split second before he moved, someone else shouted, "Hey!" It was a loud, ear-splitting almost, but I remember it had a strangely joyous and lifting quality to it, as though you and a friend had been searching diligently for something, and he had suddenly stumbled upon it. "Hey!" I wheeled to my left. The drunk man spun to his right. We both stared down at this little old man. He must have been well into his 70s, this tiny gentleman, immaculate in his kimono and hakama. He took no notice of me, but beamed delightedly at the labourer, as though he had had a most important, most welcome secret to share. "I've been waiting for you." "Come here," the old man said in an easy vernacular, beckoning to the trunk. "Come here and talk with me." He waved his hand lightly, and the big man followed as if on a string. The drunk was confused, but still belligerent. He planted his feet in front of the old man and towered threateningly over him. "What the do you want, you old fart sniffer?" he roared above the clacking wheels. The drunk now had his back to me. I watched his elbows. Half-cocked as though ready to punch. If they moved such as a millimetre, I'd drop him in his tracks. The old man continued to beam at the labourer. There was not a trace of fear or resentment about him. "What you been drinking?" he asked lightly, his eyes sparkling with interest. "I've been drinking sake. God damn your scummy old eyes," the labourer declared loudly. "And what business is it of yours?" "Oh, that's wonderful," said the old man, with the pure delight of a child. Absolutely wonderful. You see, I just love sake. Every night, me and my wife, she's 76, you know. We warm up a little bottle of sake and we take it out into the garden. We sit down on the old bench that my grandfather's student made for him. We watch the evening fade and we look to see how our persimmon is doing. My great-grandfather planted that tree, you know, and we worry about whether it will recover from those ice storms we had last winter. You know those? Persimmons do not do well after ice storms. Although, I must say ours has done rather better than I did expect. Especially when you consider the poor quality of the soil. But anyway, we take our little jug of sake and we go out and enjoy the evening by our tree, even when it rains. He beamed up at the labourer, his eyes twinkling, happy to share this wonderful information. As he struggled to follow the intricacies of the old man's conversation, the drunk's face began to soften. His fists slowly unclenched. "Yeah," he said when the old man finished. "I love sake too." His voice trailed off. "Yeah?" said the old man, smiling, "and I'm sure you have a wonderful wife as well." "No," replied the labourer, shaking his head sadly. "I don't got no wife." He hung his head and swayed silently in the motion of the train, and then, with surprising gentleness, the big man began to sob. "I don't got no wife," he moaned rhythmically. "I don't got no home. I don't got no clothes. I don't got no tools. I don't got no money. And now I don't got no place to sleep. I'm so ashamed of myself." Tears rolled down the big man's cheeks. A spasm of pure despair rippled through his body in convulsions. Up above the baggage rack, a four-colour ad trumpeted the virtues of suburban luxury living. The irony was almost too much to bear. And all of a sudden, I felt ashamed. I felt more dirty in my clean clothes and my make this world safe for the democracy righteousness than that labourer could have ever been. My, the old man clucked sympathetically, although his general delight appeared undiminished. "That is a very difficult predicament indeed. Why don't you sit down here and tell me all about it?" Just then, the train arrived at my stop. The platform was packed and the crowd surged into the car as soon as the doors opened. Maneuvering my way out, I turned my head for one last look. The labourer sprawled like a sack on the seat, his head in the old man's lap. The old gentleman was looking down at him kindly, a beatific mixture of delight and compassion beaming from his eyes, one hand stroking softly the filthy and matted hair in his lap. As the train pulled away from the station, I sat on the bench and tried to relive the experience. I saw that what I had been prepared to accomplish with bone and muscle had been accomplished with a smile and a few kind words. I recognized that day that I had seen aikido used in action, and that the essence of it was reconciliation, as the founder had said. I felt dumb and brutal and gross. I knew I would have to practice with an entirely different spirit now, and I knew that it would be a long time before I could ever speak with knowledge about aikido or the resolution of conflict. That's powerful, and it's so beautiful as well. I absolutely love it. I don't know if it's legitimate or not, and frankly, I don't care. It's poetically well-formed in all of its parameters, and the layout flows so beautifully. The joy of the old man comes through the page automatically. I just had to give it a life. I had to animate it and put it on the internet to share. I myself, as a man and a young man who spent a bit of time training in a couple of different martial arts, tried to figure out a way to answer my questions using violence, and was always shocked when it didn't work. Surprise. However, What really caught me dead in my tracks was that line there that I commented about. My ethical light is green. Oh, I've been there myself. Not in that circumstance, but in similar ones where I have literally been sitting there going, if only this was like this, then I would have absolute all reason to go ahead and course direction that one. And you're very lucky that I don't. And then all of a sudden the green light has come and it's gone, cha-ching, you may proceed. And each time that I've done that, it has been a trap. And has resulted in me walking away going, oh, I feel so dirty. I feel so wrong, like I have failed where I was put on test. Not for some other external authority, for my own internal integrity, my own morals, my own wholeness that I hold about myself internally. And the old man, oh my God, I cannot wait until I become a wise old man. They're so beautiful. In a world where there's a lot of issues going on with men at the moment, it's really freaking amazing to hear such a story of how violence usually is seen as the answer, especially with some righteous indignation behind it that gives it that ethical green light. Such a beautiful term for it. That's a red flag, in case you hadn't noticed. If you ever feel like you have the ethical green light to go ahead and do something to somebody, stop. Chances are it's your mind playing games. Chances are. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for having a laugh. I know that you did if you stuck around this long. Otherwise, you probably just put the story on and went to do the dishes or something, in which case, thanks for sticking around anyway. It's good for the algorithm. Don't forget to share. Even if nobody likes it, share it to your pages for me. And do all that fun stuff. And remember, joy and resolution are the answers to issues, not more confrontation and more fighting. With water, we quench the harm of fire, not with more fire. Good luck out there today. I hope you have a wonderful one. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, make it that wonderful one. It's up to you. Enjoy.